Just waiting for the timer. Okay, there we go. Because sometimes it just cuts me off. Anyway, so let me get this. Let me do another short video here. We'll try to make it nice and to the point. What I would say is that what I would say, it looks like CHOP is has run its course. What has it been, like 2 weeks now? Apparently there's been, at least allegedly, according to Seattle Police Department, 100,000 calls were made to the area of CHOP. 4 shootings have happened. 1 dead. At least, that's what's been recorded. I'm not gonna inflame this any more than everybody already has. But the search is going to be on. The search is going to be on for who fucked up. Who fucked up? That's going to be the attitude of a lot of leftists, and more of the specifically anarchists and and to some degree all the other entities that may be somewhat involved with this idea of what was Chaz, an autonomous zone, and quickly became an occupying protest. Anyway, I've already talked about that, but the search will be on. And they're going to find ways to still talk about fascists. They'll still say, agent provocateurs, it was, the fascists probably killed them. There's probably like a fascist infiltrator that came in. We have to find a way to, this is because they're ideologues. And, I have my own streaks of ideology. I'll admit, I do have my streaks of it. We all do to a point, and we all have our leanings. Some people are just naturally more left-leaning. Yeah, I would say I do believe that capitalism is a bad thing. It's a bad system. It creates inequality. It has to constantly have a what's the word that Marx uses about labor force? What is it? Marx labor power. I'm trying to think of it. Labor force? Oh, yeah, reserve. Yeah, reserve army of labor. Okay, there we go. That's what I was thinking of. I'm sorry. My booming brain. But anyway, yeah. And the capitalism needs this reserve labor force. And so they need to constantly bring in new immigrants that are willing to work for next to nothing. And they don't have to pay, they don't have to pay insurance as much, whether it's health insurance, whether it's, benefits, this and that. They can say, well, this is your base pay. Live with that. See you later. No unions. So I do realize that. And of course, the thing is that when you bring in these immigrants from India or from China or from, Mexico or from El Salvador, wherever the case may be, Vietnamese, sometimes these folks may lose their job. And then they're stuck in a country that they know that they may possibly, apart from, other family that may have lived there a generation or two. I'm getting off topic, but basically it feeds itself. It's a vicious cycle. And so I do understand those things on a basic level. Unfortunately, my honky senses, are always going to be there. But there are people who are ideologues who say, well, if we just had anarchists that took over, then everything would be better off. And then, of course, they'd say, if it didn't work out, if we had only had the right anarchist, this is the type of thing that goes on. And, it's the same type of thing. If only, I saw the cope from people like Nick Fuentes. And we it's been a while since I've used that name, but I heard a clip from his D Live, because of course he's been off off YouTube for long enough. It's been a few months now since he got BTFO'd. Now he's only on D Live, and of course he did the whole TikTok thing as well. Man, I mean, bruh, you're getting a little too old to be on TikTok. You don't need to be doing that. But he still can claim Zoomer or as much as he wants to. The thing is, he's eventually going to get old, like the rest of us, and And I heard, of course, his critiques of capital, or he said, big business is our enemy, and he kind of gives this sort of class collaborationist type argument, where it's like, well, capitalism, capitalism is still good, but it's just the corporations the way they exist now, and the Cato Institute supports this, and supports immigration, and the GOP, we vote these folks in. And all this cope about Trump, it's like, oh, well, he got rid of, he's going to limit H-1B visas and, L-1B visas, for lawn care and this and that. Oh, yeah, Americans are, he gives a slight twist to the typical conservative arguments. But he still says at the end, of course, that, well, capitalism is still needed. Capitalism, it just needs to be done in a different way. So it's like, I realize he's full of crap to a point, and he's got his own ways of looking at things. And you realize how ideology will destroy you. Is it there are people who just raised and they say this is the only ideology, they stubbornly believe it. And they say, well, only these people saved me from fascism and destroyed that, so it's the only system that I know. This is the system that's going to work. Some people say, well, capitalism, helped get me, a good job or whatever the case may be, and helped me to, start a business and everything else. So I'm dedicated to capitalism. And this is kind of what happens when you are destroyed by ideology. And then you get the opportunists. You get the folks that, they try to say, well, yeah, we're going to get socialism eventually, but right now, go ahead and vote Democrat. And I'm, who I'm referring to. A guy who said, I'm not attached to the ideas of anarcho-syndicalism or market socialism. A guy who happened to be from Los Angeles, I think Beverly Hills, and now has a beard and glasses, and wears his hair in a ponytail. I think I'll keep it there. I think I've given a pretty good description of that person. I don't feel like naming him. Just as he doesn't want to give too much attention to the fash that he debates, or the the videos that he responds to. He doesn't want to give too much attention to those folks. I don't want to give too much attention to him. Anyway, this is the whole problem that we have. Ideologues will always exist to some point. I think that's something that we all have to admit. Ideologues will always exist. It's a matter of how to balance having ideologues versus people that are just pragmatic and say, okay, this is the system that we're in. That is the balance that we have to live under, It's a very complicated thing. Like I say, with this whole business with the chop, like I say, they will inevitably find some sort of link. They will say, well, no, the fascists got involved, the cops got involved, this and that. They were shooting people. They did this on purpose to destroy. There is that. You cannot deny that there are people out there, I'm sure, that are in Seattle right now who are like, we are going to find some sort of information. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. And of course, they can say that they're the facts and logic people, and that oh, well, we're going to find the real facts. And I guarantee you, they're going to find. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? But I mean, there's baiting on both sides. I watched the video from King 5. That's a local station up there, and the bait was pretty cringe. Even I have to say, the bait was pretty cringe when the guy said, basically, is that the police commissioner, as well as the mayor, have said basically to get anything done, we have to retake the East District police station. So they were interviewing this guy. He had the BLM shirt. He had the mask, of course, to defend himself from COVID-19. And they asked him point blank, "Oh, what are you going to do if if the cops come in?" Absolute bait. And he says, just wait and see. What do you think he's going to say? It's just. So there's plenty of bait on both sides. It's like I realize that the mainstream media will do anything they can to bait this and to show just the violent aspects of it. And it's like, oh, well, mostly it's a nonviolent protest. And once again, I do try in these videos to realize that it's a complicated situation. It's a complicated world. And the hypocrisy and the layers of BS that you have to deal with and the people you have to keep happy are immense. And they completely, they overlap in so many different ways. And so I do realize that. And we can't just be black and white about this situation. It's messy. It is. I mean, we can see that whatever was created around this country is crumbling. It's like we all know that. And of course, I don't think it's immediately going to go to Mad Max. And I've mentioned some about this before, and I'm not going to go on and on about it. It would just be a rehash of what I've already said, and I do that enough as it is in these videos. What I will say is that, it's going to be complicated. But I think that once again, there are only so many folks that are that really have the wherewithal to try to transition us from some sort of capitalist country to some sort of vaguely socialist one. Not even full-on socialism where, people can, kick people out at will, as mentioned in books like State and Revolution, where everyone is paid a workman's wage, as Lenin writes. It's going to be more complicated. And nobody knows fully what's going to happen. But ultimately, it's going to take people that are not ideologically your equals, let's put it that way, that you're going to have to deal with. Whether that be accountants, whether that be lawyers, whether that be, city, council members, or aldermen. These are people that you're going to have to at least give some lip service to, at least temporarily. And I know when I say these types of things, once again, it pops into my head, and I know people are going to say this because I'm saying it right now in my head. Well, that sounds like the Kerensky government, they tried to, create Sockdemism, and, luckily the Bolsheviks, locked them out. They literally locked them out of the parliament, and, they took over, and, okay, fair enough. But I think it's, like I say, you're going to have to make some peace with those folks. You can't just simply kill them all off. I think that it's, like I say, there's a lot of back and forth between what actually happened during the Russian Revolution. And I just use the Russian Revolution because obviously that went back and forth so many times. There are people that joined the Bolsheviks, and there are people that left and joined the whites and everything else. There's plenty of back and forth that happened. And I think similar is going to happen to the United States. The people are going to go back and forth, and they're going to see who's going to do the best for them. And so it's a complicated affair. Eventually there are going to be people that Look, you know what? I'm not going to go too far down the whole, tanky route or the Bolshevik route. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is it is what it is. And I think to a point, you have to give some sort of measures and give some sort of consolation to the people that actually keep a city running and keep a city civilized. Whether that be the folks that keep the water running, whether that be the trashmen, that come by, 2 days a week or maybe more, keeping the folks that work on the roads happy, this and that. And it's going to be a very complicated thing. This, I can't really explain it very well into words, but it's going to be complicated, to say the least. And of course, you can't have, as we've seen with CHOP. Of course, like I said, it used to be, autonomous zone, and then they immediately changed it to occupying protest, which of course evokes what happened in 2011. But we've seen what happened with that, haven't we? A lot of people laugh because, of course, they brought in pizza to CHOP. It was basically just a giant block party, a lot of people said. We saw people accusing others of, bro, you steal, you robbed me, this and that. We've seen videos, of course, of people getting knocked out and their phones grabbed. We saw that the security, kind of became a little bit power hungry very quickly. A la the Milgram experiment. Let me make sure I got that right. I try to Milgram experiment. No. There's another one. There's another experiment. Milgram experiment that's about shock treatment. But I was going to say Stanford prison experiment. There we go. Thank you, Google. As much as Google isn't, but we saw how quickly that sort of mentality happened. And we saw that guy who was live streaming. They're like, "The fuck you doing recording this?" And they up and grab the dude's phone and everything. I mean, once again, I will admit that I got that source from Memology, and of course, people say, "Oh, he's a reactionary." That's fine. You can go ahead and judge that. My source, what I've seen, all you want, by all means, go ahead. But I will say, is you can't completely deny what he showed. I was going to keep this concise, and here we are going on 18 minutes. All right, but anyway, it's just an example of what happened. And of course, a lot of people have made this comparison. They've said this is like the 1905 revolution. By the time, by 12 years later, however much time, we'll be better off. This and that. I don't know. And like I say, I'll see where I fit in, and you'll have to see where you fit in your city. And once again, I'm not going to judge you necessarily. You're going to do what you got to do to survive. I get that. Anywho, I'm going to finish this up with maybe these folks have learned. I say maybe these folks, quote unquote, the anarchists or the whoever else, the BLM folks and whoever else organized this Feihua. I don't really care about the labels. They probably don't care about them either. But let's see if they actually learn something from this. And maybe make themselves that much harder for the mainstream media and make, the liberals and everything else. Maybe make it a little bit harder for them to actually shit on you, Of course, take it for what it is. I think with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've said my piece on that. And we will see where this goes. Obviously, we see once again, though, that with, you can say the state will allow some rebellion to a point, just like letting a child act up. But eventually, when they take that child home, it's on. the switch is going to come out. You're going to go behind the woodshed, and it's not going to be pretty. And similar to what is going to happen with CHOP. The folks that you have seen on camera, the footage that was shot will be looked over with a fine-tooth comb, and they'll say, okay, we're going to find this person, this person, this person, and they're going to squeeze them. I'm sure that they will. I'm sure maybe possibly the feds are going to definitely squeeze these folks for everything they're worth. And they're going to see how they're going to, how are they going to combat this later on. So did they weaken the system? I would say no. I would say they relied on the system to continue on to have this occupying protests. We have to move on just from dabbing on the fash or blaming everything on the fash. I think that's very easy to do, and that's not, once again, I'm not, but that's part of the problem with the left, is all they can do is dab on the fash, dab on the conservatives, dab on the liberals. It's like, eventually you're going to have to actually show people that you can run a society and not have it break down into some sort of, despotism. And maybe I'm using that word in the wrong context, but the despotism and the sort of Lord of the Flies situation that existed in CHOP. Maybe something will be learned, and hopefully it won't just be from the feds and from the state, including the state of Washington. But who knows? We shall see. And that's all we can do. I think with that, I have finally run out of steam. And I'm going to keep it there. And I'm sorry for making this so long. I just, I spent a long time trying to make myself sound intelligent. And it failed. So there you go. Anyway, y'all have a good night, folks. Bye-bye.